Beer O'Clock on Real Ale Craft Beer. I have not seen this beer in probably 8 years. Worthington's Creamflow. Now, one of my first jobs after I left my brief spell in the army was to get a job in a pub. And in that pub, I was 20 years of age and they were selling this. So we're talking 23 years ago. Worthington's Creamflow, sold in the Royal Hotel in Barry, 3.6% ABV, and it was my first real... Before then I'd drunk Hancock's HB, drunk some Brains Bitter kind of sporadically, but this was the first time where I kind of worked in a pub for a year. And in that year, I would always have a pint after work or a couple of pints after work. A Saturday night, being really busy, I'd probably sit and have 3 or 4 pints. And it was always this, because this, back in the late 1990s, absolutely dominated the beer scene in the UK. 440 milliliter can. It's got that kind of cream flow. Well, let's get it out into a glass, see what we get. Did you hear that? You don't see that anymore from like a Doombar, for argument's sake. I could pour it into this pint pot, which I probably should do as it's an ale. But I'm going to use the glass that it used to be served to me in, or we used to use these glasses, these kind of lager glasses to pour Worthingtons in back in the 1990s. So I'm going to go back to this kind of, I know it's probably the wrong glassware, but it's the glassware that was used when I drank this beer. So this is the era, have a look. This is the era of the trying to compete with Guinness, the cream flow, the weird looks that beers used to do. I mean, this is 3.6% ABV and they've made it come across as a glass of cream. There was lots of gimmicks in beer in the 1990s. Can anybody remember super chilled or ice cold ales? So in my local area of South Wales, Brains Brewery would have chilled or ice cold Brains Bitter, super chilled, or for whatever reason they went down that kind of this sort of kind of creamy, extra cold, quite frankly rather tasteless ale. Have a look at that. Look at this beer. I have not seen this beer in years. I've forgotten what it looked like, what it did. I was in my local shop. I just popped round the shop to buy a loaf of bread. And I looked and I thought, that's not a can of Worthington's Creamflow, surely. And there it was. And I said, where did you get this from? They said, oh, you know, it was like a job lot or something. They bought it off a company. They said they probably won't get it again. But it's so rare to see this now for me. In a can, Worthington's Creamflow. So look at that creamy head. Look at that. It was all about drinking with the eyes back in the day. It was always about kind of what your beer looked like rather than what it tastes like. So it's a deep golden amber colour. A rich creamy head on it. Aroma. It actually smells okay. Ironically, and we'll move on to the subject of Sharp's Doombar in a moment, this smells a little bit like Sharp's Doombar. I remember why I drank so many pints of it, why I enjoyed it so much. It's got a fruity, hoppy aroma to it. Hedgerow hops, dark berry kind of aromas coming through. And a little bit of a biscuit malty aroma coming through too. Let's dive in. Cheers, everybody. It's a funny one. It's a funny one because it's got a real creamy richness to it. There's a little bit of a bitterness on the back end. There's a little bit of hop presence. A little bit of that berry fruit coming through. And a little bit of malt. But it's quite a bland beer. It's quite a bland beer. But have a look at it now. I've drank some. Look at it was all about the look. When was the last time you've seen a 3.6% ABV beer do this? This rich, creamy looking. I mean, you're probably not going to see this much going forward because I don't think this is going to survive. I think this is going to completely fall away and disappear over the next few years. So let me tell you the story of why, or let me tell you the timeline of what happened with Worthington's Creamflow. So as I mentioned, in the late 1990s, this beer was everywhere. Working men's clubs all over the UK, pubs all over the UK. If you were in a Molson Coors pub, you would see Worthington's Creamflow. And they bought a company called Sharp's Brewery down in Cornwall, down in Rock in Cornwall. Sharp's brewed a fantastic beer called Doombar, Sharp's Doombar. And people started to drink it. People started to drink it more when Molson Coors bought it, and it just grew. It just grew. It was a really tasty pint back in the day, Sharp's Doombar, until it grew so much. Sharp's Doombar, people enjoyed it that much that it simply replaced Worthington's Creamflow, and it was a chance for Molson Coors to drop this whole creamy, rich nitro kind of thing going on with the beer. It was a chance for them to produce a normal ale on the cheap. They didn't have to do this kind of this lacing anymore. Look at that. I mean, look at unbelievably crazy this beer looks. It's got a cracking mouthfeel on it, a really creamy, rich mouthfeel, but it looks like a glass of milk, doesn't it? So Doombar carried on spreading its way all the way through the UK. I remember going into pubs when Doombar was replacing Worthington's Creamflow and people saying, "Oh, try this pint of Doombar, it's terrific. It's much better than that old Worthy." That's what people used to say. It's much better than the old Worthy. And to be honest with you, back in the early days, back in the early 2000s, Sharp's Doombar was a cracking pint. A cracking pint. Fast forward now, 2022, Worthington's Creamflow is a really rare thing to find. Really, really rare thing to find. And if I had a can of, or a bottle of Doombar, inevitably what's happened is that once they replaced Worthington with Doombar, they then brought the quality of Doombar down. Now, I can barely drink a pint of Sharp's Doombar. So it was a bit of a... I just think it's a funny thing to do, really. It's a funny thing to replace something like Worthington's Creamflow with Sharp's Doombar, with it being a good beer, Sharp's Doombar, and then over the last few years, bringing down the quality of Sharp's Doombar. So essentially, it tastes like a Worthingtons. So basically, they've just changed the name. They've just gone from Worthington Creamflow, they've added this new brand. Oh, it's a 20-year-old brand now. Sharp's Doombar, lowered the quality. Essentially, I reckon if you had a pint of Doombar next to this, it probably would taste exactly the same. It might be, I think, at 3.6% ABV. I think Sharp's Doombar is 4.1. I think it's slightly stronger. But in terms of taste and flavour and hop profile and malt profile, it probably tastes exactly the same. In fact, I drank Doombar recently on holiday, and I struggled to finish the pint with the quality of what Doombar is now. I just struggled. It was tinny, it was metallic. I would go as far as to say that I probably am enjoying this Worthington's Creamflow more than I would a pint of Doombar. Isn't that crazy how big companies treat their brands? You never know. One day, somebody at Molson Coors, at the very top of Molson Coors, might look at Worthingtons again, open a can of Worthington's Creamflow again, and look at it and think, can we reintroduce that? Can we make this our #1 beer again? I know, because they tried. They spent £1 million on a brewery in Burton-on-Trent. And they called it Worthington's White Shield. They tried to make Worthington's into a premium ale brand. I actually, for what it was, I actually liked Worthington's White Shield. It was about 5.6% ABV. It was a strong ale, but they put a lot of effort into it. They put a lot of thought into it, and it was tasty. It was a tasty pint. You barely see it now. You barely see the Worthington's brand anymore. But I seen it and I had to pick it up. I had to pick up this Worthington's Creamflow. Just for memory's sake, I suppose. Right, rating. I mean, look at it. Look how crazy that beer looks in the glass. Absolutely crazy. One of the best lacings you'll ever want to see on a glass of beer. Reminds me of Caffrey's, or what was the other one? You had Caffrey's and another one that tried to do this whole kind of creamy thing. Boddington's tried it. Boddington's made a creamy beer like this. I don't know. I think it's worth a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 from Real Ale Craft Beer. I can see why they replaced it, but over the years they've just replaced it with exactly the same thing. They brought out Doombar, which was once a good beer, and they've kind of ruined Doombar now. So where are we 20 years on? This is the question. Where are we 20 years on? Are Molson Coors producing a decent ale in the UK? The answer is no. They once did with the original Doombar. They've now ruined Doombar. They've ruined Worthingtons. These companies, these big companies buying UK historic. I mean, this company goes back to 1744. Historic companies. And they're just messing with the heritage, aren't they? They've got no real clue about the heritage of these brands, and they're just here to ruin them. I think so. Molson Coors, Heineken have ruined John Smith's. They've ruined Newcastle Brown Ale. Molson Coors have ruined Worthingtons. It's just that I find it. It should be made. I don't know. What am I trying to say? There should be more of a backlash than there is for these companies buying our famous brands and ruining them. We could look at Kraft and Cadbury's. Cadbury's chocolate doesn't taste the same as it once did. It's all made in, a lot of it's not made in the Bourneville factory anymore. It's all kind of shipped off somewhere else. Anyway, that's a completely another story. It's another story, but 6 out of 10. Please put your comments in the comments box. Subscribe to our daily beer and food reviews. Give us a big fat thumbs up. Boom! Cheers!